Good afternoon, everyone. Please take a moment and silence any cell phones, electronic devices to help us out. Obviously, pictures are okay, but we don't have anybody's phone ringing. My name is Brian Martin, and I'm a proud graduate of Lowell High School from the class of 1968. I'm also the chairman of the Lowell High School Distinguished Alumni Board of Directors. It is my pleasure to welcome you here this afternoon for the 20th annual ceremony of Distinguished Alumni of Lowell High School. Today's event is to recognize 5 individuals who graduated from Lowell High School who went on to do extraordinary things. Over the years, we have recognized alumni who have excelled in a variety of fields, ranging from medicine to business. We have also recognized alumni who have reached the pinnacle of success in law, government, education, and the humanities. This year's class of Distinguished Alumni is no different. Each individual has excelled in his or her field, and though their professional paths may be different, what they all have in common is their journey started in the halls of Lowell High School. Part of the foundation that led to their success was built from what they learned here and from the relationships they developed with their teachers, coaches, and fellow students at Lowell High School. We hope you find their stories inspirational and meaningful as you continue on your journey at Lowell High School. It is my honor now to introduce this year's honorees. From the class of 1846, Mary Elizabeth Lizzie Ordway, represented by Kendra Bauer. From the class of 1942, Rita Sharov Meisner, represented by her daughter Judith Meisner. From the class of 1952, B. Douglas Townsen, represented by his son Bruce Townsen. From the class of 1964, James M. Cassin. From the class of 1997, Juan Carlos Rivera. How about a round of applause for our LHS 2024 honorees? Could I ask everyone to please rise for the posting of the colors by our Air Force Junior ROTC cadets? Remain standing. Now we ask our choir, led by Evan Caberly, to come and perform the national anthem and also a special song in honor of Mr. Townsen on the 40th anniversary of his formation of the show choir. The name of the song is The Distance You Have Come by Scott Allen.
Check.
Are they awesome or what? Wow, unbelievable. So Bruce Townsen, that was for your dad. Okay. Yeah. Before I ask Mr. Piatto to come up and introduce a few dignitaries, I wanted to recognize some previous honorees as distinguished alumni of Lowell High School. First, from the class of 1980, Brian Chapman. Thank you for coming, Brian. From the class of 1962, Jim Campbell. Thanks, Jim, for coming today. In the class of 1956, our favorite Lowell artist, Janet Lambert Moore. Thank you. From the class of 1949, Titus Plumeritis, always here for Lowell High. From the class of 1945, my dad's class, George Simonian. Thank you for coming, George. It's now my pleasure to introduce the head of school, Mike Piatto.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. What an incredible opportunity it is to highlight the achievements of the LHS alumni dating back from as early as 1846 up until 1997. The students that are in the room, I just want to address you for a second. The reason why you're here today, not only to support the event with the amazing productions that you guys have to offer, but to take in what's being said today. Every alumni here today has a special story and a journey. Their journey at Lowell High and after Lowell High. You all have your own journey that you're embarking on now, and you'll have an opportunity to showcase your talents and all of the amazing things that you'll accomplish, but it's always really important to reflect on what other people have done to pave the way for you and to make it possible for you to be here today and enjoy the benefits of being a Lowell High student. So that's why you're here today, and I appreciate all that you do every day at Lowell High. Speaking of appreciation, I want to appreciate the Distinguished Alumni Committee, for without them we would not be able to have this event year after year. And behind the scenes, but doing such incredible work, Mr. Brian Martin, who is the chairperson of Distinguished Alumni. I want to thank you, Mr. Martin. And the real head of school of Lowell High, I want to thank Sue Francisco. She doesn't like when I give her any credit, but she makes this happen. And her loyal sidekick, Trudy Michelle, who's always making sure we're covering all the details. Thank you for all you guys have done. And I just really want to quickly thank the ROTC, National Honor Society, show choir, color guard band, the student voice, the TV production, and we cannot forget the GOAT, Mr. B, Mr. Bolianitis, because he made this all happen today. I'd like to thank our invited guests, Superintendent Liam Skinner and Wendy Crocker, Rober's Assistant Superintendent, for taking time out of their busy schedules for being here today as well. And now, let's get started. Presenting for Mary Elizabeth Lizzie Ordway, class of 1826 to 1897. She was born in 1826 and left us in 1897, but she's the class of 1846. Carolyn Chim will be presenting. Carolyn is the Vice President of the senior class, President of the National Art Honor Society, and Vice President of the Environmental Club. Please welcome Caroline Chim to the podium.
Mary Elizabeth Ordway, from the class of 1846, also known as Lizzie Ordway, was a pioneering educator and women's suffrage advocate in the Pacific Northwest. Born in Derry, New Hampshire, she moved to Lowell, Massachusetts in 1842, where she attended Lowell High School and began her teaching career in 1850. In the mid-1860s, she became one of the first Mercer girls recruited by Asa Mercer to move to Seattle, Washington to help educate the growing pioneer population. Known for her strong character and independence, Lizzie quickly made a lasting impact on education in Washington Territory. After arriving in Seattle, she accepted a teaching position at Whidbey Island and later in towns like Coopville, Port Madison, and Seattle. In 1870, she opened Central School in Seattle, where she was the sole teacher for over 100 students. Recognizing the need for more staff, she successfully lobbied the hiring of additional teachers. In addition to her work in education, Ordway was a passionate advocate for women's rights. In 1871, she joined Susan B. Anthony during a speaking tour in San Francisco, and together they formed a female suffrage society. In 1881, Lizzie made history as the first woman elected superintendent of schools in Kitsap County, Washington, where she served for 8 years. Ordway's legacy in education and women's suffrage continues to inspire. She passed away in 1897 and was buried at Lakeview Cemetery in Seattle with a school on Bainbridge Island named in her honor. Representing Lizzie Ordway today from the class of 1846 is Kendra Bauer.
Hi, I am not Lizzie. I was not born in 1826, but I am Kendra Bauer. I teach English at the high school, and I'm delighted and honored to be here today on behalf of Elizabeth Lizzie Ordway. And I, like Lizzie, was not born in Lowell, yet Lowell, especially Lowell High School, have always held my heart. I love Lowell so much, in fact, I even married a Lowell girl, and we're the 5th generation in her family to file our marriage certificates at Lowell City Hall. 19 years of my teaching career have been spent in the English department at Lowell High School, and I'm privileged to work here with these inspirational students. I'm humbled to accept the Distinguished Alumni Award for Lizzie Ordway, class of 1846, and I want to add just a few more details about her life and the honor that she brought to our school through her years of service in the field of education. After graduating from Lowell High School, she attended Ipswich Academy and returned to the Lowell school system. Lizzie did travel with the Mercer girls by boat to the West Coast around our country, and Lizzie never married, like all the other girls who went out west with her, but instead was determined to teach. Teaching was Lizzie's one great love. Beginning her West Coast teaching career in 1864, she devoted herself to education for over 3 decades. Lizzie was described as a formidable force in public education and as having a mind of her own. I want these descriptions to belong to me, a formidable force in public education and a mind of my own. In 1881, when Lizzie ran for county superintendent of schools, a local paper printed an editorial saying, "It may be a good joke to put a woman in nomination, but I would never vote for a woman at the polls." Lizzie ran for elected office almost 40 years before women were given the right to vote with the 19th Amendment. Yet, she was elected and re-elected for the next 8 years. Lizzie thrived in difficult teaching environments, and she wrote, "I was sent to take charge of a school, but its reputation had that of a hard school to manage. Well, I've been agreeably disappointed. These pupils quickly came under discipline, and I hope to have succeeded in arousing ambition in them to feel a love and interest in their studies." She clearly had an unwavering belief in the potential of every child. You, LHS students, sitting out here today, this is where I want you to imagine for 1 minute what it would be like to lead a classroom, what it would have felt like to have you as your first grade teacher. How would you have been impacted in middle school if you had a teacher who spoke your first language or shared your culture? I want you to be inspired by Lizzie's work. I want you to consider becoming distinguished in a career in education yourself. 82% of our teachers in Lowell are white, yet 79% of you are from the global majority. Your education is being curated and distributed by white teachers and administrators, and a lot of us are really amazing. but we want you to come and take our jobs. We want you to be I'm inspired by her work, and I challenge you to think of Lizzie as you begin your journey as future change makers and potential educators. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Bauer. At this time, we're going to see a brief video of the little bit of the history of the distinguished alumni.
On December 26, 1831, Lowell High School opened its doors to Lowell's first students. 193 years later, Lowell High School continues on as the first coeducational and racially integrated high school in the United States. Today, Lowell High School is proud to recognize 5 more of its most distinguished alumni. From the class of 1997, Juan Carlos Rivera. From the class of 1964, James M. Cassin. From the class of 1952, B. Douglas Townsen. From the class of 1942, Rita Sharov Meisner. From the class of 1846, Mary Elizabeth Ordway. Each has traveled a very different road in life, and each has a distinctive definition of success. However, there is a common thread in the success of these outstanding people. Each attended and graduated from Lowell High School. Lowell High School moved to its present location in 1840 and consisted of just 10 rooms and a large assembly hall. Soon after, Carolyn Von Bonker became the first African American to graduate from a public high school in the United States. In 1859, James Carney of the Lowell Institution for Savings established the Carney Medal Awards. This honor recognized the top 3 male and top 3 female graduates for excellence in character, scholarship, and attendance. These awards are still presented annually to Lowell High's most deserving students. Lowell High remains as the bedrock for a long list of distinguished scholars, artists, public servants, and athletes. This 2024 class of distinguished alumni carries on that tradition of excellence achieved by the previous 19 classes of inductees. Today, Lowell High School preserves the tradition of excellence begun in 1831 by recruiting the finest teachers while integrating cutting-edge technology into the lives of today's learners. For all our students, much like today's honorees, the journey towards distinction and success begins here at Lowell High School.
Thank you. And now presenting for B. Douglas Townsen Jr., class of 1952, Gabriella Falcone. Gabriella is a member of the Tri-M Music Honor Society, the Lowell High School's marching band. She will look to continue in the musical arts in college.
Hello. Okay. B. Douglas Townsen Jr., known as Doug, was born on January 15, 1934, in Nashua, New Hampshire, and raised in Lowell, Massachusetts. He graduated from Lowell High in 1952, excelling in music, and earned a degree in music education from Lowell State College in 1956. Doug began his teaching career in New Haven, Connecticut, but was drafted into the U.S. Army in 1958, serving as a chaplain's assistant in Germany until 1960. After returning to the U.S., Doug taught at Sunapee, New Hampshire, where he met and married Terry Patnod in 1961. They moved to Lowell and raised 2 sons, Bruce and Kevin. In 1966, Doug returned to Lowell High School as a music and choral arts teacher, where he inspired thousands of his students with his motto, keep music in your heart and you'll have harmony in your life. He taught at Lowell High until retiring in 1997. Doug's involvement extended beyond teaching. He directed choirs at St. Margaret's Catholic Church and Elliott Presbyterian Church and composed the official song for the Lowell's 150th celebration in 1976. He was active in music communities from Ocean Park, Maine, to Nokomis in Florida. After retiring, Doug and Terry moved to Somerville, South Carolina, and later to Zephyrhills in Florida, where they lived until their passing in 2020. Doug is survived by his sons, Bruce and Kevin, his sister Natalie Ogilvie, 4 grandchildren, 7 great-grandchildren, and numerous relatives. His legacy of music, teaching, and community service continues to inspire. Representing B. Douglas Townsen Jr. of the class of 1952, his son, Bruce Townsen.
Thank you very much. Well done. You pronounced all those words correctly? Well, I promised myself that I'm going to make it through this without getting emotional. Not going to happen. Anyway, good afternoon, everybody. Mr. Fiato, thank you, sir. Mr. Martin. Other distinguished graduates, family, friends, and of course, so many of you who are Dad's former students who are out here today. When I learned a few months ago that my father, B. Douglas Townsen Jr., was chosen as a distinguished graduate from Lowell High School, the first thing I felt was an overwhelming sense of gratitude that he was receiving this honor. And then a twinge of sadness because neither he nor my mother would be able to be here in person to accept this induction in person. Dad went home to heaven about 4 years ago. But I'm grateful for the invitation to accept on his behalf, and it was a nice excuse to come home to Lowell. I now have the challenge of stating the obvious about my father in an eloquent manner and keeping it somewhat brief at the same time. So I'll do my best. Friends, my father set an example to my brother and me when we were growing up. An example of kindness, of compassion, of measured and appropriate discipline, of tolerance for the acceptable, and firm but gentle rejection of the unacceptable and of that which should not be tolerated. Dad was always kind. I often said of my father after I myself As I grew up in the 60s and 70s, our house here in Lowell was always seemingly visited by many of Dad's students. An untold number of those students have become lifelong and treasured family friends. Jan, Joe, I could name them all. Now, I didn't understand the depth of that at the time. I merely thought that Dad was simply a well-liked teacher. But he was so much more than that. It wasn't simply that Dad was a well-liked teacher that made our house a place frequently visited by hundreds of his students over the years. No. It was because Dad made them feel welcomed. He made each and every one of them feel valued, accepted, safe, and even loved. Told you. Dad was simultaneously a teacher, a proud teacher, a counselor, a mentor, and a friend. And to so many, a father figure. By virtue of that, my brother Kevin and I have literally hundreds of brothers and sisters because of my dad, who saw my dad and my mother as parental figures. Our house was a refuge so often to a lot of them. So Dad's legacy here is, of course, the lasting impression he made with Lowell High School, and he made the music department very much his own. And while I'm on that, show choir and band Well done, boys and girls. You absolutely... My father's chest would be bursting with pride. But his legacy is also in the way he enhanced the lives of his students by letting them be who they really were, by letting them flourish with their artistic talents and abilities, bringing out their inner selves, and letting each of them shine in the way that they shone the best, and then having them turn around and use that shine to make our country and our world just a little bit better place to be. So it's fitting that the stage in the auditorium across the canal and that building so many of us knew as Lowell High School was named in Dad's honor, because it saw hundreds, if maybe even thousands of performances under his direction in his time here as a teacher at Lowell High School. And it's more fitting now that Dad joins the ranks of the other distinguished graduates from this venerable old institution. I'm almost done, I promise. Dad gave so much to Lowell High School and to Lowell, and he kept giving long after he retired. Church choirs, community choruses, an old-fashioned brass band up in Maine, a men's chorus in the retirement community in which Mom and Dad retired about 20 years ago. All of them felt my father's touch and his humble guidance. Dad did not know how to stop giving. He just couldn't do it. Now, I started by saying that my father set an example as I grew up, and he set the example to everyone if it was to make things better. So following that example, I know that if I can personally touch the lives in a positive manner of even half the people that my father did in his lifetime, then I will have completed a life well lived. And friends, I have a very, very long way to go to do that. There are many of Dad's former students here today, including a special shout out to Heidi Wunsch-Gagnon, who nominated my father for this. Heidi, where are you? Wave your hand. Thank you, Heidi. And I will ask them to help me just a little bit in this final tribute to Dad. And those of you who are in the audience, you know this. My dad's most well-remembered saying, if you keep music in your heart, you will have harmony in your life. Dad's smiling very broadly down at us right now. So on behalf of my father and the entire Townsen family, thank you all for coming today.
Thank you. Presenting for Rita Sharov Meisner, class of 1942, is Mia Samwang. Mia is a member of the National Honor Society, captain of the field hockey team, captain of the varsity lacrosse team, pep club officer, and newly elected student council president.
Rita Sharov Meisner, born in New York City in 1925, moved to Lowell, Massachusetts at the age of 8 and became a dedicated advocate for public education. A top graduate of Lowell High School in 1942, she majored in physics at Simmons College and later worked in MIT, contributing to nuclear-powered submarine research. In 1949, she married Dr. Sidney Meisner and shifted her focus to raising their 3 children. Rita co-founded the Lowell Federation of Civic Organizations on Education in the 1960s, promoting educational improvement for children and adults. Her passion for literacy led her to co-found Lowell's chapter of Reading is Fundamental, which distributed free books to school children, growing into one of the city's largest privately funded programs. In recognition of her work, Rita received national honors from Senator Paul Tsongas and National RIF. She was named an Outstanding Citizen of Lowell by Mayors Raymond Rourke and Brian Martin and received accolades from the Lowell School Committee and UMass Lowell for her contributions to education and the community. Rita volunteered in the Teaching English as a Second Language program and helped immigrant students. After the passing of her son Robert, she and her husband established a scholarship in his memory, later expanded to include both Rita and Sydney. Active in the League of Women Voters at the Temple Bethel, Rita left behind a legacy of service and advocacy when she passed in 2007. Representing Rita Sharov Meisner is her daughter, Judith Meisner.
Well, good afternoon. My sister Gail and I would first like to thank Lowell High and the Distinguished Alumni Program for honoring our mother, Rita. I was quite surprised to get a call from Mr. Martin, as I had no idea that this program even existed, but I've since enjoyed watching some of the videos from prior years and learned what an accomplished group of people have graduated from this institution. I'm sure that many of you will follow. You've heard some of my mother's public achievements and her longstanding interest in and work for public education, including here at Lowell High. So I'd like to add some less public aspects of her life and describe some of her traits that I try, not always successfully, to emulate. She embraced her immediate and extended families, her friends, her children's friends. More than one of our friends said that they wanted to be adopted. She accepted people as they were and looked for something positive in everyone. With the exception of politicians of a certain political persuasion, she did not have negative things to say about people. She was always there for all of us, to help, to teach, to talk, to advise, to support, to encourage and cheer, and when she felt it was necessary, and it sometimes was, to offer constructive criticism. But she always did this in a positive way. She always had time to listen, and she cared. She was generous in giving of her time and efforts in support of causes she believed in, and she was never mean-spirited. And except when she was teaching me how to drive, she was very patient and a wonderful teacher. Learning to drive was turned over to my father. She did grade school arithmetic and high school math many times with a number of our cousins, as well as with me and then my sister. I think our brother Bobby did it on his own. He became a mathematician. I was not a fan of geometry. The year I took it, Mom was attending a lot of evening meetings, and I would work on my homework problems until I was completely frustrated, and I'd leave the book on the kitchen table with a note. Mom couldn't get problems 3 and 5 on page 75. She'd do them when she came home, and she would go over them with me the next morning, and she did not miss one the entire year. She worked on grammar and writing with all of us, correcting as we spoke, which sometimes made it difficult to get out a complete sentence, but it was done with good humor and never made me feel stupid. When I mispronounced something, she would say, "You're putting your accent on the wrong syllable." She loved to read, and I think it was wanting to share this passion for books with others that got her interested in the Reading is Fundamental program that distributed books to elementary school kids to take home with them. This program ran out of our basement at its beginning. Gail and I still have some of the books Mom got as a child from an aunt of hers who was a librarian. Mom always felt she should read or reread the classics as well as current books. She had Ulysses by James Joyce with her the week before she died. I have to confess that's one book I've never been able to read past the first 2 pages, and I don't know how far she got either. Our parents were regular attendees at all our school functions, concerts, and dance recitals as we were growing up. This continued as they became regular attendees at my community band concerts, and she always found something positive to say, even if all of the performances were not really ready for prime time. I'm a defense attorney, and my parents came to court for years to watch my oral arguments. And no matter how badly it went, and sometimes it went quite badly, I was always wonderful. My nieces, Gail's children, had the same admiring audience for their recitals and school events. Granny, as they called her, was always available to listen to their endless chatter and play their games. She lovingly shopped for them and with them, giving consideration to their preferences and not her own. And those preferences sometimes differed quite radically. This consideration for others was a hallmark of who she was. She's been our role model and left us with a legacy that is difficult to match. Over here, I don't know whether anyone's had a chance to see it, is a quilt that Gail made that has kind of pictures and awards that were given, and it's it's a tribute from her early years up till the end. I think that there are a couple of things that maybe take away. One is that you should find your interests and follow them. But as you're doing that, always remember to think about the people that you're dealing with and the people that you are influencing. So I'd like to just say thanks again to Lowell High School and this program for honoring her as a distinguished alum.
Thank you. And now presenting for James Cassin, class of 1964, is John Susi. Jack is a senior Lyceum student, a member of the National Honor Society, and a member of the boys' varsity baseball and basketball teams, and a partner in our unified basketball program.
Thank you, Ms. Fiato. A lifelong Lowell resident, James Cassin dedicated his life to education, community service, and family. Born to Thomas and Margaret Cassin, he graduated from Lowell High School in 1964, where he was captain of the Boy Officers Regiment and a key player on the championship baseball team. He earned a BA in History and Government from UMass Amherst in 1969 and an MA in School Administration from Salem State in 1977. James married Joanne Henry in 1972, and they raised two children. They raised two children, Bethany and James Jr. His teaching career spanned over 30 years at Lowell High School and Greater Lowell Technical High School. He served as the Teachers Union President in 1975 and from 1997 to 2003, and was Director of Adult Education at Greater Lowell Tech from 1975 to 1978. He later became Superintendent of Greater Lowell Tech from 2003 to 2010. James was also deeply involved in the community. He coached youth baseball and football, helped found the Greater Lowell Tech Scholarship Golf Tournament, and participated in the Jimmy Fund Golf Tournament for over 37 years. He served on the City of Lowell Zoning Board of Appeals from 1989 to 2003, held leadership roles at Lowell General Hospital and the Boys and Girls Club, and was a board member for Mount Pleasant Golf Club and Lowell 5 Bank. Additionally, he served as deputy sheriff for Middlesex County. James also owned the Tavern at the Bridge, applying his work ethic and leadership in business. His legacy of service and dedication left a lasting impact on Lowell. Now please join me in welcoming to the podium from the class of 1964, James Cassin.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to take a moment and thank the Distinguished Alumni Committee for this award. Also want to congratulate the other recipients. I consider it an honor to be on the stage with them. As many of you know, I grew up in Lowell. I went to Lowell schools, the LeBlanc Elementary, which was then called the Oakland School, the Moody Junior High, and of course the high school. I live with my family home, which my dad bought in 1936. I am definitely a product of Lowell High School. And I have to go off script here a little bit to say I'm really blown away by this facility. I have not been in Lowell High since 1970 when I hired to be an algebra teacher and then transferred over to the trade school. This place is amazing, and I just want to say how lucky I think. Community, volunteer, local charities, get to know the people of your city. The people you meet may have the keys that open the doors to your success. I am proud to represent the class of 1964. We just celebrated our 60th class reunion. And we have many members who have done such great things. I have a couple of friends here that I'd like to recognize. Two of my fellow graduates that sat in class with me. My locker mate, Mike Casey, Mike, we're locker mates because it was so crowded in the school in those days. I think it was 4,000 kids. We had to share lockers, and they were half lockers. Mike's a great guy, very smart. I think he was 16 when he graduated. Vietnam veteran, and is a famous poet and has won many awards with his publications. Congratulations, Mike. My other friend is Bruce Carter. Bruce is sitting next to Mike. He sat next to me in homeroom for 3 years. He came all the way up from Rhode Island to see the ceremony, and I appreciate that. Bruce is also a Vietnam vet, was awarded the Silver Star and Bronze Stars for bravery, and has 2 Purple Hearts for his wounds. Bruce recently retired from the real estate management company that he owned. Great guy, hardworking guy, and thanks for your service, Bruce. Appreciate it. I point out these two because I know them so well, but Lowell has produced many outstanding people, and I'm sure there are some in the audience here who will be up here before you know it. I have one message for you. Don't be afraid to challenge yourself to be great. If you don't do it, who will? In closing, my wife Joan and my daughter Bethany are the reason I'm here today. Like they say, behind every successful man is a strong, smart woman. I have 2 of them, so I've been blessed twice. Thank you for this great honor, and best wishes to the students of Lowell High.
And now presenting for Juan Carlos Rivera, class of 1997, is Kendrick Del Orb. Kendrick is a member of the School Building Committee, City Youth Commission, State Youth Commission, and Early College Council.
Thank you, Mr. Piatto. With 28 years of experience in youth development, Juan Carlos has dedicated his life to empowering young people and strengthening his community. He began in peer leadership with Planned Parenthood, followed by roles with the Coalition for Better Acre and the YWCA Tobacco Prevention Program. His commitment to preventing youth violence led to 6 years as a street outreach worker focused on gang prevention. He was also a founding member and director of operations for the United Teen Equality Center, better known as UTEC, to help shape its mission. Currently, Juan Carlos is the Deputy Executive Director for the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Lowell, where he leads strategic planning and youth development initiatives, promoting healthy lifestyles and fostering good citizenship. A recognized leader in youth violence prevention, his work has been highlighted by the Johns Hopkins University Press. Juan Carlos has earned several prestigious awards, including the National Professional of the Year from the Association of Boys and Girls Club, and the Service to Youth Award from the Boys and Girls Club of America. He serves on multiple boards, including the Enterprise Community Advisory Board and the Greater Lowell Community Foundation Board, and was recently appointed to the Governor's Community Empowerment and Reinvestment Board. A graduate of UMass Lowell with a degree in psychology and legal studies and a Tufts University Institute for Nonprofit Management alum, Juan Carlos continues to inspire through his lifelong dedication to youth and community. And now, it is my honor to invite to the podium from the class of 1997, Mr. Juan Carlos Rivera.
Hello, everybody. I just wanted to, I really thank you all for being here today. I want to start by saying thank you to Joe Hungler. Joe Hungler was the person that actually nominated me for this recognition. So Joe, I don't know where he is. Joe, I just wanted to say thank you. Coming from you, this means a great deal to me, so thank you very much. I also want to thank the steering committee for this honor and for really allowing me to be a part of such an amazing group of alumni. When I think of Lowell High, I have so many amazing memories, but it basically comes down to 2 things. It comes down to the relationships that I had and also the supports that I got. And so on my freshman year, I met a group of friends, and I'm happy to say that 20 years later, they're very much still a part of my life. And one of the things that, one of the reasons I think that is because of the connections that we made in high school. The other thing that I want to mention was in terms of the supports. So I wanted to highlight two specific people. One is Mr. Earl. Mr. Earl was my biology teacher, and as part of his coursework, he made us make sure that at the end of the semester, we had to hand in a notebook with all of the information, all the work that we had to do. And he didn't know this at the time, but I was going through a really difficult time, and I had decided that I was gonna fail the class. So I went up to Mr. Earl, and I knew I had the incomplete notebook, and I handed it to him, and he picked it up, and I'll never forget this, and he looked at it really quickly, gave it back to me and said, "You can do better." And I froze because that wasn't the plan. So, and he said, "Bring it back to me tomorrow." And so I went home and I started working on it, and I started adding in as much information I could. To be honest with you, I think I added in even more information that I didn't need to add. But I came in the next day and I passed. But what I took away from that experience was that I never wanted to be in that situation again, right? I wanted to make sure that whatever was happening in my private life never affected my personal life. And I carry that with me until this day. The other lesson I learned is that Mr. Earl could have failed me, but instead he gave me a second chance. And in the work that I do with young people today, I think it's important to give second chances, especially because life happens, right? Sometimes you're going through a difficult time and you need somebody to be able to step in and just give you a little support to get you back on your feet. So thank you, Mr. Earl, for your support. I also want to highlight Mr. Rivera. Mr. Rivera was my parent liaison, but to me, he was this Mike. To me, he was like a teacher, a mentor, and a guidance counselor, all wrapped into one. And one day, Mr. Rivera came up to me and said to me, "Juan Carlos, what are you doing with your life?" And I was like, "It's 7:30 in the morning." And I shrugged my shoulders. I was like, "I don't know." But he said to me, he recommended, "Have you ever thought of helping out in the community?" And I thought about it, and I started looking into it, and there was an organization at the time that was recruiting young people to go out in the street and educate other young people on a number of health-related topics. And I fell in love with it. I love not only working with young people, I love meeting new people, I love actually being out in the community. And for some reason, something clicked, something made sense to me, and that opportunity just opened up a number of different experiences. I became a community organizer. I then later started an organization called UTEC, which I'm incredibly proud of, and is still doing amazing work to this day. And today, I'm still working alongside young people at the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Lowell. So when I think back, I think Mr. Rivera knew that I was just kind of going through the motions in high school, and I needed some kind of purpose, something to get me motivated. And I'm so grateful that he was able to guide me in that direction, because I love the work that I do. I love the interactions that I have with young people, and I love being a part of my community. So, Mr. Rivera, wherever you are, if you're seeing this, thank you so much for your guidance. And then finally, I just wanted to thank my mom. My mom is here today. I don't think that myself, my brother Joshua, or my sister Jeannie could be where we are today if it wasn't for the love and support that my mom has given us. They also, by the way, graduated from Lowell High School. So Mom, thank you so much. I love you. Guys, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Well, how about a round of applause for our 2024 honorees? Thank you. We have a few minutes, and we asked Mr. Thornton to have the students prepare a few questions for our honorees, for their representative, and I have a few listed here. So I'll start with the first one, and I just pass the microphone over, I guess. And this is for Juan Carlos, someone who's currently working with the youth in the city. What do you believe?
I think a big motivator for a lot of people, and this is not just true for young people, but is fear, right? A lot of young people will not try something because they're scared to do it. And my recommendation is, no matter what you do in life, it's important to show up. And make sure that, especially the things that you find value, and especially the things that are important to you, is to make sure that you kind of push through that fear. And I guarantee you that if you're able to do that, you'll start seeing a number of different changes in your life. And so I think the second question was, what could you be most proud of? I think that the thing that you can be most proud of is that you have the ability, like anybody else, to give your opinion, right? And so I encourage you to make sure that no matter what room you're in and wherever you're talking, don't worry about your age, don't worry about your experience. Worry more about the fact that you want to be able to be there in the room, you deserve to be in the room, and giving your opinion for whatever it is that you feel is important.
For Kendra Bauer, on behalf of Elizabeth Ordway, what would have been the appeal for you to go across the country, or actually around the country, because he traveled by ship, I believe, to go to Washington, where she would have stayed and taught?
Oh, yes. So I actually did a lot of research about Lizzie because she was so fascinating to me. She was actually the oldest of all the girls to go out. She was 35 years old. And I think that a lot of the girls were motivated by going out and experiencing something new. This was right after the Civil War. There was a lot of change happening in Lowell. And I think, though, for Lizzie, the appeal truly was to go out and educate in a new space. That she really, from the moment that she went, she was excited to teach students, and that she kept that at the center of everything that she did during her career. She loved teaching.
Lizzie Ordway it's quite a story. It took her 2 months, I believe, to get to Seattle when she left Lowell for her first big teaching assignment. Can you hear me, Janet? Okay, 2 months. And I actually read, I received an email on my way to the event today from somebody in the historic museum on behalf of Lizzie. When Washington celebrated its 100th anniversary as a state, she was recognized as one of the 100 Washingtonians of the century. Lizzie Ordway from Lowell High School. Pretty cool. Next question I have is for Judith. What would Rita say if she was asked what she loved about Lowell? She was clearly drawn back to the city and cared so much about the youth. What would she have to say?
I think what she'd say is that it was the people here, and she just enjoyed working with people of all different ages and helping people be their better selves and get the best education that they could to further their own goals and interests.
For Bruce, through your dad's many years as a teacher, what do you think kept him inspired to continue on for so many different generations? It had to be difficult many times. What would you have to say?
That's a great question for whoever came up with that. What kept Dad inspired for all the years? Like I said in my remarks, Dad allowed his students to shine in the way that they shone the best. And if you look at the time period that Dad was a teacher here, from the mid to late 60s right up until the late 90s, styles of popular music were constantly evolving and changing all the time. So that represented a challenge. And to keep the kids interested in coming into chorus and to band. And again, you guys have done a great job. And at the same time that Dad was trying to keep everybody singing things that were popular and appealed to them, he also infused in them a love for some of the more classical music. Everything from little pieces of operettas to Broadway musicals to Handel's Messiah, which we did every Christmas time. So Dad found a way to keep the kids engaged by mixing all the different varieties of music. And one of the most gratifying things to me is when I meet one of Dad's students who came after my time here, who says what Dad did for them in inspiring their love for music. And it's not just stuff you hear on the radio, it's all of it.
For Mr. Cassin, you were involved in many different organizations in and around Lowell, with an audience filled with young people about to become the next generation of Lowell adults and leaders. Why do you believe it's so important to give back to the city?
I think I sort of addressed that in my little speech. I try to keep it short because I know you can lose an audience if you go too long. But I think the thing about Lowell that I liked about it is the people. All the people I get to know through high school and through organizations were great. And they were positive, and they wanted to get things done for the city. And they didn't mind sacrificing their time. My time on the zoning board for 14 years, and I wound up being the chairman the last 5 years, I really enjoyed meeting people from the city that had problems that we could possibly solve and make their life a little bit better. And I think that if I could send out a message to everybody here, is to reach out to your neighbors, get to know who lives in the city, different parts of the city. In the old days when I was a kid, my father grew up in Lowell off Lawrence Street, which he used to call the Flats, talked about how the city was divided. The Irish was in one section, French in another, the Greeks in the other, Polish in another, and how they didn't get along. You can go from one section to another. And that's all changed. We are a melting pot, and I think the best thing you can do is to get to know your community and participate in it. Thank you.
Before we finish up, I wanted to just mention a couple of things. One is that once the school is finished with the construction, there are distinguished alumni boards similar to the Connie Medal boards, and all of the for that. And I wanted to just finish by, for a lot of people, a lot of the students that are sitting here, you may not, they don't get programs, so I want to just mention some of the success stories that have come out of Lowell High School. And I can flip through the pages quickly because I know almost all of these honorees or their families over the years. But Paul Sonkus, a Lowell High graduate and a United States Senator and the President of the United States. Brad Morse, Congressman from this district. George Duncan, the founder of Enterprise Bank. Ken Wallace, the publisher of the Lowell Sun. Bill Sullivan, the founder of the New England Patriots. Marty Meehan, the president of the university system. John Stack, who was an engineer who worked with Chuck Yarbrough when they broke the sound barrier. Pretty impressive. Milton Bradley, from the games of Milton Bradley. And the last name I wanted to mention is something that is near and dear to me because of where we are in our schools, in our country. There was a student, a graduate of Lowell High School in the 1870s, and his name was James Sullivan. And he was the top student at Lowell High School in every subject, top student. And in those days, the teachers, the faculty, voted on who would be awarded the Connie medals, the 3 boys and the 3 male and 3 female students. And in that year, the awards were announced, and James Sullivan was not listed as an honoree. And there was a real community debate over what happened. And what happened? He was Irish, and no one would vote for him to be a Connie medalist. Well, it ended up before the city council, it ended up before the board of aldermen in those days. They were bicameral government in Lowell, and before the school committee, and they awarded James Sullivan a Connie medal. However, he got a 4th medal, not the top medal. And now, here we are in 2024. That would never, ever happen in our school. But that's how it was in the way back then. And I'm so proud of what Lowell High School has to offer our students now, that everyone gets a fair chance. Everyone gets to come to Lowell High School when you walk in the door and you have a faculty and administrative staff that's doing everything to help these kids succeed. So it's quite a school. So with that, I want to congratulate our honorees again. Thank our students. The choral arts were fantastic. The band was fantastic. ROTC, all of our alumni that came back today. And thank you all for coming.